It never really occurred to me that my wife and I would have trouble conceiving.
Didn't even cross our minds in the slightest.
Having a child was the next logical step. I didn't want to accept it at first.
I felt like it was my fault.
It hit me like a wrecking ball all at once, all the emotions all at once.
Infertility is so emasculating.
It's made me more aware of how I feel about what's important to me.
I think I tried to escape from it a little bit. I suppose, buried my head in the sand and thought, it'll happen.
I probably, like most men, didn't want any help, didn't want it, couldn't accept any help.
Probably didn't cope very well with it, just buried it down, I think.
I can't think of one aspect of my life that's the same now as it was before the diagnosis.
Men are as much part of this as well. Why don't we say something?
There are no one-armed men in sight, but plenty of fugitives on this week's Have You Seen? Hello and welcome to another episode of Have You Seen? As you can see, I'm doing the intros this week for very good reason, which we'll find out in a minute. But we are talking about First Blood and On the Run. So we've got some Sylvester Stallone and some Yuen Biao to discuss. I'm Tom Webb, and on the other side of this internet connection is Kieran LaFour. In a somewhat different state to how we're used to seeing him. So I'm going to throw you over to him and he can explain what's going on.
It's been a hell of a week. Anybody watching the video version right now will be able to see that my face isn't as it would normally be. That is because approximately 1 week ago, I suffered a bout of what's called Bell's palsy, which is very hard to say when you have it. Basically, it's it's caused by a viral infection, and it's partial paralysis, temporary paralysis of one side of the face. It makes it very hard to speak, so I'm really glad I'm signed up to do a 45-minute podcast tonight. And there's seemingly no reason anybody should get it. I was reading the Wikipedia page, and basically it's a diagnosis of elimination. The doctor goes through all the things that can cause this kind of paralysis, like a stroke or that kind of thing, and just rules them out until they go, no, you've got Bell's palsy. I knew what it was because, as has been discussed several times on this show, I'm a wrestling fan, and the most famous wrestling commentator in the world, Jim Ross, who is the by God Almighty famously spoofed commentator, got it in 1994 and has it permanently because it wasn't treated quickly enough. So that was my worst case scenario.
What, you'd be a wrestling commentator?
Yeah. I never tried commentary. I did lots of other things within wrestling. I never did commentary. Always wanted to give it a go. But it meant I could walk into the doctor and tell her what I had. She was amazed I even knew the phrase. But it also turned out I knew somebody who had it as a kid and recovered in 3 weeks. So basically, half of my face is frozen. Unless it's one of the 5% of cases, 5 to 10% of cases that are permanent, it should start recovering properly within 3 weeks and be back to normal within 6 to 9 months, which is a long time still to have half a face. Oh God. I mean, I've talked about this so much recently, like everybody's got questions about it. I've had to explain it to my boss. I've had to explain it to a lot of people. I've actually started, and I'm going to cheekily plug, I'm doing video diaries about it. I'm essentially vlogging about this. So if you want to learn more and kind of like follow it along as I figure it out and track my progression, if you go to bit.ly/Kieran Bells, yes, that was the only vanity URL that wasn't taken that I could get. bit.ly/Kieran Bells. I'll put that on the screen and in the description. And you can see basically me every day or so as I do a series of facial exercises into the camera to try and track progression. And there has been progression already, even just inside a week or so. So what tends to happen is each night I will feel electrical impulses around my eye and the corner of my mouth, which are the worst affected areas. And then the next day, or shortly after that, I will have increased range of movement in those areas. For anybody just listening to the audio and not able to half lip read me, I really hope I can be understood well enough to get through these films today.
You're doing pretty well for now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. Have you got any questions? Is there anything you think I should cover for people? I've always been upfront with everybody. I wanted to try and do the show.
Yeah. Well,
and
we'll see how it goes.
Exactly why I sound weird at the moment.
Yeah,
part of the problem is I can't apply tension to the right side of my mouth. So sounds and air just escapes from that side. We might have to take little breaks throughout, and Tom might do a bit more talking than normal.
Lucky listeners.
Mumbling than normal. So we'll see how we go. I want to get through it. I want to do it. I mean, I need to have a bit of fun in my life this week. So I had a COVID test today as well. Woohoo!
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've got a thingy up my nose.
I think like when you first told me you got it and you sent me a little video clip, it was just like, it was amazing and lucky that you knew what it was straight away. Because that must, like, if you had no concept of this, that must be terrifying. If that, like, particularly in a situation you're in when you're sort of in lockdown by yourself, and it's just like, if that just happens, that, I mean, I probably would have absolutely freaked out.
It kind of came on. It kind of came on slowly. I explained in one of my videos that on the Friday night, I treated a mouth ulcer with like the Bonjela gel, which kind of numbs your mouth a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you use too much of that, you end up with a bit of a numb lip overnight, and it's not a big deal. You're fine in the morning. But the next morning, the ulcer had gone, and my lip wasn't fine.
That's weird.
Yeah. So I and then I noticed that something was up with my eye as well. Like my eye would be watering and it would get dry. If you can hear crackling sounds, that's because I currently have to drink out of a bottle with a hamster top on it. And I have to squeeze it to get the liquid into my mouth. I cannot drink out of a glass at the moment. A can of Diet Coke earlier was a right mess. So I've had to poured my Coke into this bottle to squeeze into my mouth. So apologies for bottle noises. And then Sunday, it was full on. Like, I couldn't move one half of my face. It was like looking at two different versions of me in the mirror at the same time.
I mean, it is pretty like a weird thing to say, like, because obviously I know
you're sitting here watching
exceptionally well
live, isn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, I've obviously watched the videos that you've put out, and you sent me a couple of clips anyway.
And we've known each other like 22 years, so you know what my face looks like.
Yeah, so it is really. I mean, it's disconcerting for me seeing you like this. So, like I said, it must have been so weird.
I want to say thank you to the lady who saw one of my videos on YouTube and said, "You're still very handsome."
Nice.
So I'm going to look a bit twisted on video. There might be my vanity will decide whether this actually goes out as a video or not, and how much you cut back to me at any point, I guess. There may be points where you see me holding the side of my face to apply tension to my lips if I'm having trouble getting sounds out and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's that nonsense. Should we talk about some films?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just another thing on the list of 2020 shite.
Oh, God.
We have to go through, isn't it?
I'm hoping. I just bought a lottery ticket for tomorrow night, which, if it comes in, is 27 million quid.
Yeah, I've been doing that.
I'll put up with this if I get 27 million quid out of it. But yeah, 2020 it's the year that just won't quit. And we're only halfway through.
I know.
There's a bloody American election to come yet.
Like, you keep thinking it can't get any worse. But I dread to think.
No. Here is Amazon with another package of shit.
Right, I think let's start with On the Run.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get through the synopsis quickly.
Yeah, if you want to do, just you can do a brief synopsis and then we'll kind of crack on with what I thought about it.
Okay. So, On the Run stars Yuen Biao as Hyung Ming and his wife. It doesn't star his wife. It stars a woman who plays his wife. And Ming and his wife are both cops who are getting divorced. He is CID and she is anti-narcotics. He's lost her to another cop, Lou, played by Charlie Chin, who is the head of homicide. And she finds out Lou has been selling drugs on the side with his band of corrupt officers. So he has her killed by a female assassin and investigates the murder himself. As the gang starts to cover their tracks by killing the assassin's uncle/handler, Ming locates the woman who pulled the trigger, and they realise they are each other's only chance of survival, forcing them to go, bomb, 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 on the run. I pitched this to Tom because we are both big fans of the three dragons, the three musketeers, as they got called in the 80s and 90s, who are Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and Yuen Biao. And of those three, Yuen Biao was always Tom's favourite. So movies like Knockabout and Wheels on Meals and Prodigal Son, those are the kind of that you gravitate towards, those kind of things where Yuen has a big leading role, because he's a little flippy dude, I guess. And this is essentially, as I put it last week, an attempt to turn Yuen Biao into Dirty Harry, all 5'4" of him. There is no martial arts action in this movie. There is fighting. But it's guns and brawling, and I think it's a good film no matter who's in the lead, but it's particularly odd seeing a man as being a small acrobat being cast as a hard-boiled cop. So I'm going to throw over to Tom, and he can give me a little précis of how he feels about it.
Yeah, sure. So I was looking forward to this because I am a big fan of Yuen Biao. I do like his stuff. I love like Prodigal Son and Knockabout particularly, and all the ones he did with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. So I was looking forward to this. I think overall I was kind of disappointed by it. Mostly, I think the thing that for me that let it down was the direction.
Yeah, it's directed by a guy who made his name directing comedies. This was his first kind of like action thriller movie.
It felt to me like, because it's incredibly violent. It's there's lots of plot detail. It felt like it should have been a John Woo movie, but it didn't have the panache that John Woo has. Like, it didn't have the style and it didn't have the kind of, I don't know, it just didn't. I felt like it, that because I thought Yuen Biao's performance was actually really good. I liked him. I thought he was believable. I think he was a good actor, and again, Charlie Chin the same, and both the lady assassin and the little girl, and like all the performances were good, but it was like just the way, the style of it. It felt a bit, I don't know.
Well,
it
this
just didn't quite gel.
This movie had like a fifth of the budget of a John Woo film, and this would have come out at the, I mean, not the height, but like getting towards the peak of Woo mania in Hong Kong. So Better Tomorrow 1 and 2 were already out, and The Killer would be the year after this, and then Hard Boiled followed 3 years after that. So like the Hong Kong movie market was turning towards the heroic bloodshed genre at the time.
Yeah, I just kind of, it's weird. I kind of like, again, I thought good story, like it was a good story, but and it was a very intricate plot, but I don't think it was necessarily told in the most effective way. There were bits that I felt, am I missing something here, or I might not, and you know, you piece some bits together here and there. So yeah, it was really it's really difficult. I didn't think the action was very good. There's a couple of good stunts, like single stunts, but the action is shot really badly. Yeah. There's a particular bit I'm thinking of where
Yuen gets run over by a guy on a scooter.
Oh yeah.
And it's like it takes 8 cuts for them to knock him over. Whereas in any other movie, it'd just be bam and down at the time.
And that for Yuen Biao, that's a one shot. Like he can do that stunt. In a
and
single
I don't think
shot
he did it
wide.
himself. I think it's a stunt guy doing it as well.
Oh really? I thought he did the initial bump, but maybe not.
Maybe like the other 7 takes, they got another guy in.
Yeah.
I mean, as we discussed last week, like in terms of Yuen Biao's career, he was doing, around this time, he was also doing Dragons Forever and Eastern Condors, which are both, I think they both came out this year, and they are very, very physical roles. So maybe
maybe you wanted a break.
Basically, just acting might have been what he needed at this point.
I think I would have preferred if they'd had no action. Okay. Because I just felt it didn't, like the best part of it is the stunt where he does, where he jumps from the building onto the lamppost, or pole vaults onto the lamppost and then down onto the van.
Impressive.
And that's really cool.
I think they do that in a single shot, don't they? or at least a take from behind and a take from in front.
Yeah, they do. I think the pole to lamppost and down is 2 shots.
Yeah.
That they cut between, and then there's the hit on the van is done in 2 as well. I think, which is it's a hard hit as well. So like I thought that was pretty good, but it just didn't quite. I don't know. It's one of those movies you watch it and you think, that felt really cheap, and it could have been so good. It's kind of like, we've got look, John Woo's really popular. Let's copy his style with a movie. We can get a big star, but we can get a bankable star, and then that's it, you know. So
it would have been
I
better with a different actor and a bit more budget.
Maybe. I mean, I thought Yuen did a pretty decent job. I just, I don't think it was him that was at fault. I think it was just the lack of style, and I think that's what it is. Like it's I don't know. John Woo has got like
I mean, Hong Kong directors in general in the 80s were known for like pretty much all of them had a bravura style of some kind of or other. Like you could tell a Sammo Hung movie, you could tell a Jackie Chan movie, you could tell a Tsui Hark movie, you could tell a Ringo Lam film. Like they all had distinctive styles. And Alfred Chung was a guy, as I said, who made his name just making daft comedies throughout the early 80s. Yeah,
it does seem like a bit of a weird mismatch. Did he make any of the Lucky Stars or anything like that? Was he involved in any of those?
I thought I had in my. I can't be bothered going through IMDb. I thought I had in my notes a load of stuff he had made, but it's all kind of like knockabout gentle sex comedy stuff that was the likes of the Lucky Stars and the Aces Go Places stuff, because in the early 80s in Hong Kong, comedy was the big genre. Like martial arts faded out at the end of the 70s, like really before like the resurgence of Jackie Chan with, or the appearance of Jackie Chan with Snake and the Eagle's Shadow and that kind of thing. But it was all, God, I can't remember their names. The Hui Brothers, I think they were called, Sam and Michael Hui, who were the Aces Go Places, and then came Lucky Stars, and then they combined them and did Lucky Stars Go Places. Yeah, and it was all slapstick daft comedy. Yeah, was what was pulling them in at the box office. So even John Woo did like those kind of comedies at the beginning of the 80s. Yeah,
it's crazy watching the evolution of that sort of Hong Kong cinema at that time. Yeah, but so I mean, there was stuff that I kind of liked about it, and there was other stuff that I was just thought, wow, this is a bit, it's very bleak. A lot of it's quite bleak. Yeah. Like, I mean, Yuen Biao loses everything in this movie. He loses his wife, his mum, his kid, like just that. He gets decimated.
There's a scene where they go to Grandma's flat. So Ming and the assassin have got together, not got together, but like they've teamed up. There's a weird scene where she's wearing a dress for some reason in a field that doesn't relate to anything else in the story. And they go to his mum or his wife's mum's flat. I don't know who. It's Grandma's flat. Yeah. In that flat, 2 different people get shot through the eye. Ming gets shot twice in the same shoulder in 2 days. Mm-hmm. And then his 2-year-old daughter gets killed.
Yeah.
Like he's holding her, like there's a gunfight while he's holding her. And like the assassin, he asks, like he can't see her face, and he asks the assassin woman, "How's Lynn?" which is the daughter's name, and she says she's asleep, and then it cuts to blood running down the child's hand. Yeah. And it's like, oh man.
Yeah, it's like Jesus Christ. And then they just leave her in a wheelbarrow.
Yeah,
and that's it. And then you're like, what? It's just there's just some weird stuff that goes on in this film.
There is, but oddly, I still really like it.
Yeah,
I don't think I liked it second time as much as I liked it the first time, but I still like it. I still think it's a good film.
Yeah, I think there are bits of it that are good. I think it all comes down to it doesn't quite hold together as a whole package. Like, do
you know what I think it would be good as now? A 3-part Netflix standalone drama.
Yeah.
Because they cram so much into 85 minutes. Like I said, it never stops.
No.
It's
You're right.
Really
I mean,
fast-paced.
Yuen Biao in the first 20 minutes alone has his wife killed, finds her killer, and suspects that someone might be corrupt, and that happens literally in the first 20 minutes of the film.
See, I told you that when I gave you the plot last week, didn't I? That I was just giving you the beginning.
Yeah. So
there's there's a couple of great lines that I really liked, which was like the assassin. She's asked why she does it, and she's like, "Life's cheap and earrings are expensive."
Yeah. There's some,
and then towards the end, like where they decide they're going to team up and they're going to go after the gang of corrupt cops, who incidentally are corrupt from the get go because they're all played by villains from like Hong Kong movies. So it's Yuen Wah was the one that gives it away, who's the bad guy in fucking everything. Anyway, she says to Yuen, "Have you got any money?" And he says, "Not much," and gives her like a $5. And she says, "Give it to me. I only kill for money. With this, I'll kill for you." And I'm like, "That's cool. Yeah, that's cool." I really wish I could say it.
I did wonder whether Tarantino had seen this and used some of it as inspiration for elements of Kill Bill. Maybe, because there are bits and there are scenes in this where I was just like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." There's like the little mini pretend showdown between literally like the 2-year-old and the assassin, and like that's kind of gets mirrored in Kill Bill as well. So I did wonder.
The kid has a toy gun, doesn't she?
Yeah. And it's so there's a lot of stuff in it. You're like, oh, but whereas with Kill Bill, because of Tarantino's style, it's so heightened, you get it kind of works. Whereas with this, it's so gritty and bleak that it actually feels really like, oh, that's a bit off.
Do you think maybe it's a good film that could have benefited from a bit more style and perhaps a lighter touch, if you like?
Yeah, I think it either needed better action and more visual style, and it either needed to be heightened or it needed to be reined in. It's like it's sitting in this weird no man's land.
Yeah, I get that.
But
it does also contain the line "quiet or I'll blow your throat up." So.
Yes. Yeah. So I think I just think what else I was going to say about it.
So there were two. There's is there anything you want to cover in the middle? Because most of my notes are towards the end. To be honest, I ended up with a whole load of a whole bunch of quotes, and then just towards the end, so the final fight is brutal.
Yes.
Between Yuen Biao and Charlie Chin.
Yeah.
Chin trying to pull a machete out of his own thigh is disgusting.
Yeah.
But there's a bit, and like I said, that fight is nothing like you expect from 1988 Yuen Biao.
No.
They hammer each other. And there is a part where Chin very obviously has Yuen Biao's head down on a desk and his forearm... this is going to be difficult. Forearming and hammer fisting him legitimately right in the side of the head. He might have a pad on his arm, but he's fucking wailing on him.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. It's really full on, and it's weird. It's weird when it goes big, and when it doesn't, it doesn't, and it just doesn't quite have that gel that kind of just makes it all work for me. But yeah, I think. The other thing I was going to ask is at the very end, there's a title card.
Oh, yeah. It comes up so quickly and very, very faintly in English, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I managed to read it.
Yeah, I paused it and I wrote it out in case you couldn't read it.
You don't need to read it out. I'll praise it because I don't want to make you read it out. But essentially, at the end of the movie, Yuen Biao has lost everybody. So the assassin says, come with me to the Golden Triangle in Thailand and we'll disappear into a village. I think she's supposed
to be Thai, even though she's played by a Chinese woman.
Right. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, she certainly has links to Thailand because that's where the drugs are coming from and stuff. So, and basically at this point, he's got nothing else left. He's still wanted by the police because they think he committed murders, which I guess he has done in hindsight.
Well, he has, yeah. But he's murdered the murderers.
Yes.
No, he's murdered the people who hired the murderers.
Yeah, so although his murders may be justified, I guess they're not really, but who knows? This is the grey area where it doesn't quite kind of work. And it says... they got on a boat and got stopped in the harbour and were arrested and are now having long prison sentences. And I was just like, is that there because they had to have their comeuppance?
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there are some
so
Asian territories.
I wasn't sure if it was that or whether it was based on a true story.
No. So what happened is basically it has that very annoying Hong Kong movie conceit of just ending immediately after the climax, which happened like from the 70s through to the 90s. It would be the final kick and then the end and cut to black because they've done all the credits at the beginning. And it's to keep it short so you can get the next showing in. But they put the title card up because there are some Asian territories such as Taiwan where anybody who is shown to commit a crime on screen has to either die or have their comeuppance by the end of the film. They have to die or be arrested or
bit like the Hays Code.
Justice. Sorry, yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, I think we've discussed this before when we done when we done Asian movies.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a bit like, oh, okay, bit weird. Yeah, I don't really know if I have much else to say on it, really.
No, me neither. I mean, I don't know if I'll watch it very often. I have my VHS copy, which is the only way this ever got released in the UK.
Wow.
I
think, it could be a good remake. It could be, it's one of those movies that you're just like, actually this, whether it's a US remake or a British remake.
I was thinking that actually, like I would kind of quite like to, like the main plot is really like, I mean, the plot of the head of homicide killing somebody and investigating the murder himself to try and cover it is a good device. I like that a lot. I think it's a prototype of a good movie.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. The next, it's a really good first draft. The second draft would have been better.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But they don't do second drafts in Hong Kong in 1988.
No. It just, it definitely feels like it's the stepping stone to the gigantic John Woo movies. Yeah. It feels like it's
It was probably just a cash in to try and get that audience into a Yuen Biao film.
Absolutely, yeah. And why not try?
The only little light note I have is it had an alternative title, which is the literal English translation, which is just Fleeing Couple.
Nice. It's descriptive, at least. Well,
exactly.
Not even really. But
again.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Alrighty, shall we move on to First Blood? I am not at any point going to try and pronounce the name of the star of First Blood because we'll be here all night. So he'll be called Rambo.
Okay, fine. All right. Do you want to take a break before we crack on with First Blood?
I'm all right. I think I can. I can just sip some Coke out of the hamster bottle while you do the.
Okay. All right.
Thing.
Yeah. So, First Blood, the first in the series of the Rambo movies, which is now up to 5 or 6. I think I've only seen
possibly
the first
7.
3.
I noticed yesterday. I'm interrupting already.
Yeah.
Last Blood has appeared on Amazon Prime, so I'm tempted to just watch the first one, the last one, and not bother with any of the ones in the middle.
Okay, that may or may not work. And I think I've only seen this movie maybe twice, but it's one of those films that I had very preconceived notions of what it was. I think most of my information about any Rambo movie was based on images from the second and the third one, particularly growing up as a kid. So I had a very specific idea of what it was. When I watched this movie, it was so not what I was expecting that it kind of took me by surprise, and I was quite impressed by it and quite engaged by it, and I thought it was actually a very different kind of movie to what I was expecting. I can't remember the last time I watched it, probably over 10 years ago. So even coming back to it now, I was just like, have I misremembered it? Do I remember it being like that? And actually,
I was going to say, I hope you've watched it again in the past week. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I've watched it again, and I kind of thought, okay, well, yeah, there is kind of more action than I remembered, but there were some elements of it that I like, okay, it was that about it that surprised me. It's so what I found out, interestingly, is that the first cut of the film was 3 to 3.5 hours long.
But first cuts of movies tend to be like this. They do. Kind of popped up on the internet recently as people are discovering that for a first cut, you throw everything in.
Yeah.
And at the end of the first cut, I mean, you went through this yourself with
Absolutely,
the easy
yeah.
bit. You throw everything in, and then you cut out what doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. The first cut of the easy bit was 6 hours, I think.
Exactly. And what is it now? Like 95 minutes?
Yeah, 95 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, you always knew it would be. But so I think that after seeing that 3-hour cut, but the thing is, you got to remember, is action movies from the 70s were 2 hours plus.
And slower paced. Than action movies now.
And also,
although Face Off is 2.5 hours, and that's not slow paced at all.
I know there are exceptions post this, but that was kind of the norm. And also, Stallone was coming from he was a Pacino, De Niro actor. Like and he wasn't an action movie star, so it was a very different feel. And it was Stallone who saw it, decided he hated it, wanted to buy it so that he could destroy it because he didn't want it released. Couldn't do that, so he oversaw the edit and made them cut it down to 90 minutes or sub 90 minutes, and it was that. And he basically cut pretty much him out of, he cut mostly him out of the movie. His response to it was basically, you need all the other characters to tell Rambo's story, but then he's just this entity that they're facing. So it was him that sort of drove that and essentially created what would become the 90-minute 80s action movie. And set the, I don't want to say benchmark, but the template certainly to what came after it.
Well, yeah, much like On the Run, it's a prototype, it's a template, isn't it?
Yeah. So it does some things very differently to what I would have expected from an 80s action movie. But anyway, what did you think of it? What was your reaction to it?
Do you know? So I got maybe half a dozen notes in, and I wrote 2 words: reverse Predator.
Yes, it's exactly what it is. Yeah.
It's Predator, but
you're on the Predator's side.
You are siding with the Predator. Yeah. I think overall it's a good film.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would, actually.
Yeah, I kind of
even
thought
knowing that it wasn't going to be like the machine guns and muscles Rambo.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me see if I can find the bit where I wrote what I think about it rather than just all the stupid notes. Okay. Well, this is irony. I wrote, it's a real shame Stallone's speech impediment made him a bit of a joke because he's working his ass off here, and now look at me. It's funny that this came on the day I watched First Blood.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, I'll yell Adrian in a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Sorry, hang on.
It's all right.
I mean, I'm saying hang on, but I never at any point wrote what I thought of it, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I just wrote a series of moments, and I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it up to a point, and then it lost me, and then it got me back again.
Okay. Yeah, so, I can see that. I can see why that might happen.
They're out, the cops are out hunting Rambo in the forest and up the hill, all the rest of it. He's getting the best of them, the whole kind of thing. There's a great line near the beginning where this cop, they arrest it. So, okay. The sheriff, Brian Dennehy, wants Rambo out of town immediately.
Yeah.
Sees him and immediately goes after him, gets in the car, escorts him to the city limits, and then Rambo turns around and comes back into town, and the sheriff goes after him again. Arrests him for resisting arrest, I think, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then they're going to lock him up, and they find his knife, his knife designed specially for the movie, which then inspired other military knives, apparently. Yeah. And this cop goes, "What do you hunt with a knife?" And I'm like, there speaks a man in a small mountain town who has never seen a hunting knife.
Yeah.
There is a cop so ginger he could be in About Time. And it turns out it's David Caruso.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't expecting.
Right. There's a few little kind of people in the background. You're like, oh, that's so-and-so.
Yeah, they're all those kind of grizzled cop faces who show up in other 80s movies.
Yeah.
Something I did find that's interesting, the scene where he's being processed in the jail. If you think how big Stallone is made to look in future action movies, he's the shortest of 4 men on the screen in that scene.
Yeah, well,
he's just a normal guy.
He is. I mean, he was a normal guy at that point. I mean, obviously, I think this came out the same year as Rocky 3.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it did.
So,
so he's already got 2 massive hits under his belt.
Exactly. And 2 Oscar nominations.
Oh, yeah. What was the...
So he got one for Rocky...
Did he get one for Fist?
No, he got one for the performance in Rocky and the screenplay.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So he's he's kind of he's definitely he's been on the rise, but then he'd had a couple of pretty much every movie he did that wasn't a Rocky was a flop.
Right.
So this was kind of like a bit of a litmus test to see whether it was just the Rocky franchise that was huge or whether Stallone was a valid superstar. And it actually, I feel like this is what made him the action star as opposed to the Pacino, De Niro kind of actor.
You know I love my box office stats.
Yeah.
This was made for $17 million.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be 10 and it went over and ended up being about 17. It took 125
That's crazy.
in 1982. Yeah, so that is a lot of money. And I think that's just US.
Yeah. Mm.
I did think it's funny that the cops wanted to shave his 2-day stubble.
Well, they just wanted to intimidate him.
I found out it's a holdover from the book where he has so it says it's based on a novel by so and so, not the novel by so and so, which was interesting. In the book he has longer hair and more beard. Yeah. And I think they probably, because it's the early 80s, they wanted to keep the style recognizable.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in the book apparently that doesn't translate into the film as much.
It was probably in that 3-hour cut.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the main things is that Brian Dennehy's character Teasel is a veteran of the Korean War. So that doesn't. You see some medals and stuff in his thing, but that doesn't really come across. And there's a bit of a.
It's a tension between a Korean vet and a Vietnam vet, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And also the way they go about things is supposed to reflect the wars that they were a part of. So Teasel's is a bit more what you would think of as Second World War military style of procedure and kind of like, going in with force and that kind of stuff. Whereas obviously with Vietnam, he's used to the guerrilla warfare, blah, 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 blah. So, it's one, I think if you look at, say, like Arnie's movies, the closest comparison in terms of character that you could probably find is maybe Commando.
Yes, I guess.
But my point being that Commando...
John Matrix minus steroids.
Yeah, but you kind of think like, that's kind of over the top, silly. That's a proper like 80s action movie, right?
he is just a war vet who lives in a cabin with his daughter, isn't he?
Exactly, yeah.
At the beginning, before he's forced into action,
Yeah. And with this, I think what I think the 3-hour cut thing, I think what it was supposed to be was a real commentary on PTSD and vets and all of that and rehabilitation. I mean, the PTSD
part still comes across, even if it wasn't called that in 1982.
Yeah. I think that's what kind of was what I found shocking about it. It was the fact it was actually addressing an issue and doing it pretty well. I mean, some of the flashback, like the stylistic editing might look a bit cheesy now, but the kind of the concept of it.
the one in the prison cell got me, where it just like it's rapid zooms into the
it's a bit kind of cheesy, but I think it does its job because it kind of it gives Rambo this kind of like, he's tortured and he's not just this, he's just reacting to his environment in a way.
Yeah. And so I said it lost me and got me back. And it's about an hour or so in. Yeah. Or maybe a bit more than that, actually. So he does. There's all the stuff. We'll probably go back to it. He does all the stuff in the forest fighting the cops, and then he goes back into town and starts blowing shit up. And that was where it lost me. I'm like, now he's just an arsehole destroying a town. He's not a wronged man I feel sympathy for anymore.
Yeah.
But then there's the scene after that with Troutman, who is his commander, who gets called in to try and calm him down over the radio, if you like, basically. And there's a scene with Troutman in the police station, and it's like it's almost becoming a siege.
Yeah.
Where he's trapped. And they managed to flip it back again because Rambo does a speech that I can't remember that basically explains it all, and like in the clunky 80s way explains his PTSD. And I'm like, and that made me realize that he He was a programmed machine reacting to his programming.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's what I think it was.
And that made the silly bit make sense to me again. Like,
yeah. So you're right. He just goes on this like destruction spree. I don't think he actually kills anyone during that. Like certainly not civilians or anything.
I think the only person who actually gets killed is the dickhead cop who falls out the helicopter. And that's the only person that John Rambo kills anyway, I think.
Yeah, but even then, does he directly cause his death? I don't think he directly kills him. I watched this a week ago, and it's been a hell of a week, so I can't remember. So but I think it's a body count of 1 in this whole movie. Yeah, so that last fight, because this is the thing, like you have all of this explosion and stuff like that, and you think this is the climax to the movie, and you're expecting the hero to walk away triumphant, and he doesn't. He ends up hunched over, crying against a filing cabinet, talking about all of his mates that are dead, and it's just like it's quite a powerful sucker punch at the end.
This is where I wrote the bit about him working his arse off, because that speech, he's really good in that speech. He's
really good, and you're watching it, and it's totally believable, and it's just this, like he starts talking about his mate who had a Corvette or a Chevy or something, and they were going to go and drive it, and like they had all these plans, and he starts talking about them all, and it's cut away, and it just. Yeah, I think it really...
Apparently that was a story he was told by a real vet.
Right, okay.
That
it felt so real. Yeah. I think it's... And then it's almost essentially like the okay, there's been all this destruction caused. Does Teasel die at the end? He certainly gets severely injured, doesn't he? Because he falls through the window.
Rambo shoots up through the roof, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think he dies. He might get carted away in an ambulance. I think he lives.
Yeah. And at the end of all of that carnage, they just put the colonel just takes Rambo and is like, I'm going to deal with him, and he takes him away, and and you just see him being led off like almost like a child, and it's quite a. It's not the ending you expect from an action movie.
No, it was
pretty brave, I think.
Yeah, it is brave. I don't want to say subtle. I want to say it was much more affecting than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, same here. That's why,
this is a much better film overall than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
even knowing it wasn't like the preceding ones.
Yeah, I mean, the part 2 and Rambo 3 are probably exactly what you think they are.
Yeah.
And they're just cashing in on the
hot shots.
Exactly, yeah. So I feel like it's a bit of a shame because obviously this led to Stallone going the action route with his career and becoming almost a bit of a joke in some respects.
Oh yeah, then he became Cobra and Tango and Cash and
which are fine,
nonsense, didn't he?
Yeah,
I haven't seen Cobra, and I haven't seen Tango and Cash for a really long time. I've met the director of Tango and Cash. He's a really nice Russian man who wants to make arty movies.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I quite like Tango and Cash. It's all right, but it's just I feel like Stallone is probably one of the great American actors that never was allowed to be. It never quite panned out.
Yeah, we said that. He didn't really pull that back until it got to Copland, and I don't know if that was a success at all. I mean, that was 97.
Critically it was.
Yeah, critically it definitely was. I don't know if it made any money.
No.
And so he didn't really do it again, and it all became the Expendables and
exactly.
more Rockies and Rambos.
Yeah. Have you seen any of the Rocky films?
I have never seen a Rocky movie. I own the entire box set, the 1 to 6 box set.
Right.
I haven't watched any of them. I got the Blu-rays because they were £10 for the whole lot.
I've only seen the first one. Okay. And again, that was a movie that took me by surprise. So
yeah, it's something I think I've always wanted to see, but just haven't bothered putting it in the player.
Okay, all right, I'll have to think about that.
I want to touch on a few things I really liked.
Okay.
So there's the scene where he escapes from the police station.
Yes.
Sly could move. The only stunt double in that whole fight and escape sequence seems to be a guy who does a sliding sweep on a cop in the corridor.
Yes.
Everything else is Stallone doing.
Although that could be Stallone, because I know that in that sequence when he elbows that cop, doesn't he?
Oh, he breaks his nose for real.
Absolutely for real, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a scripted broken nose, but Stallone actually broke the guy's nose for real, yeah. No, like the body shape didn't quite look right.
Right,
like,
okay.
I think it was the stunt guy doing that.
Yeah.
But everything else was him. It appeared to be anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
The use of aspect ratio is really good. So it's
Right.
really wide. It's a 235 anamorphic aspect ratio, which basically means, for the uninitiated, big, thick black bars when you watch it on your telly.
Yeah.
But the width of the shot is used really well. Particularly, I think, there's sequences with the helicopter, with Rambo small in one corner and this dominating machine and a lunatic shooting at him.
Yeah.
Like taking up the other 2/3 of the frame.
Yeah. Props to the guy who flew the helicopter in a gorge.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's the sort of thing, you're just watching it and then you go, oh, wait.
Yeah,
that's probably really dangerous.
Yeah. There's rock walls all around him, and he's maybe 25 feet off the ground, which is no height for a helicopter.
No, it's crazy. It's some great flying in that film.
Yeah. There's a shot of Rambo sewing up his own arm, which is terrifyingly believable.
Yeah.
And I had a load of stuff I wanted to talk about this week, including how in a whole week I ploughed through all 4 seasons of the incredible Money Heist on Netflix.
Right.
Which I reckon is a stupid title, but I recommend it to anybody. It's the most thrilling TV show I've seen in decades.
Oh,
it's
okay.
awesome.
No,
But I've also watched the documentary that goes after that, and there's a sequence in that where one of the characters has to get a bullet wound sewn up, and they got an actual surgeon in to do it, and he gave the actor a real stitch.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we did...
But like the shot, having seen both of those shots within a week, like they look the same. So I could perfectly believe that Stallone just stitched himself.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
There's a couple of great lines as well. So like when they're out in the forest, Rambo says to Teasel, I think it's over the radio, "In town you're the law, but out here it's me."
Yeah.
Which sums it up perfectly, I think.
Yeah.
And then when Troutman comes in, his opening line before he's even seen on screen is, "God didn't make Rambo, I made him."
Yeah.
Which again sums up the character.
There's some amazing interaction between him and Troutman and Teasel, and there's some great lines in that, and it's just
that actor. Like he joined really late, didn't he? He was supposed to be somebody else.
Oh, really?
I can't remember the name of him. It's really bad of me. But he joined very late, to the point where for the first few days of shooting, he had to have the script supervisor off camera feeding him every line one by one.
Really? Okay. Jesus.
Yeah, because he hadn't seen a script when he got there.
He actually gets second billing ahead of Brian Dennehy.
Have you got his name?
No, I don't. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't.
Hold on, there might be some clacking noises as I go to IMDb.
I can probably do it quick.
So he gets there first. First blood. Richard Crenna.
That's it. Yeah, I nearly got it. Yeah, because I was like, oh, Sylvester Stallone. And I was like, oh, Brian Dennehy. Oh, wait, who? What? Oh, yeah, Richard Crenna. Okay. And then it's like with Brian Dennehy, who again, I think he's great in this. Like he's
Brian
got that. He's always good.
He kind of became one of those 80s standards for a good hand.
Yeah.
Like a guy who's reliable on anything. He would always be like, he usually played reliable cop.
Yeah. And he's in he's the leader of the aliens in Cocoon, isn't he?
Is he?
Yeah. Pretty sure he is.
I don't know if I've seen Cocoon all the way through.
Really?
I think I saw it when I was young, but I was too young to really understand it.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
So like its first TV showing, I'd have been maybe 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get it.
Yeah. But I think he's great in this, and it reminds me of. Have you ever seen the film In the Heat of the Night?
No, but I know of it.
Okay, so it's actually a really similar premise to this. Sidney Poitier's character just coming through town, and he gets terrorized by the sheriff. But instead of being a war veteran, he's just black, and it's this whole, and he's imagine the sheriff from Smokey and the Bandit, but everything about that character that is not comedic, like just this vile, vile.
The whole, I imagined, was it the whole? You sounded taller on the radio.
Yes, It's just it's a fantastic movie, and obviously still massively relevant today. Yeah. But it's interesting because Dennehy kind of is that kind of cop, and he's obviously. he doesn't. We don't even know if he has any kind of racism or anything like that. But he's definitely that kind of small town prejudice, and it's.
Yeah.
And I think it made me wonder, like, okay, if a lot of these small town American police forces were made up of men who served in Korea or World War II or whatever, there's obviously an ingrained sort of way of thinking and a way of doing things.
I think for shorthand we can kind of call it racism because you are sent to kill another race of people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Yeah.
For lack of a better phrase,
but,
like just to simplify it, I guess.
Yeah, but you know, so you
but it's still prejudice. It's still you are not our kind.
Yeah, I think prejudice is a better word.
Yes.
Although that often means racism in this instance. But I think, and I started to wonder, okay, so maybe if that's the case, then those guys were trained to be that way because they were trained to fight the Germans or the Koreans or whatever, right? But then it seems that set up those systems and those environments that then people have come into, but they haven't had the traumatic experience of a war. So they end up given this almost like this system where they can have that freedom to be prejudiced without the trauma that may or may not have caused it in the first place. So it breeds this kind of contempt.
They have a hatred with no reason to hate.
Exactly, yeah. And I wondered if okay, is that why that particularly the US and to some extent the UK is in the position it's in now? Like, is it because of those institutions have been set up in the wrong way from way back then?
It is also because, particularly in the US,
West.
I think we're kind of veering into political commentary.
Yeah, a little bit.
Those institutions in the US carry a lot of weight and are revered. Like, think what the US defense budget is compared to the health budget.
Yeah, well, I mean,
for example,
just like the fact that the New York police force, like $6 billion a year. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So, you know, when you look at movies like this, and you look at, you know, there have been movies about this style of prejudice, you know, in the early 80s, in the 60s, and it just goes back and back. Even probably going back to things like To Kill a Mockingbird and stuff like that. Like, it's just always been there. And yeah.
Okay, now imagine John Rambo played by Denzel Washington.
Exactly. I mean, that could be a bit on the nose, but that stacks another layer on top of it. It does, yeah. So that's why for me,
that'd probably be really fucking good too.
Yeah, for me, it just kind of, it's weird. But the more I watch this movie, the more I set it at a higher standard in my thinking. You know, I think it raises itself up in my estimations, and I think it is a really good template prototype for what became the 80s action movie, which I guess would have been perfected with Die Hard, which incidentally runs over 2 hours.
Yes, it does.
But it's that same kind of setup.
Yeah, man against the odds.
Yeah.
I will definitely watch this again. I don't know if it will be soon, but I will watch this again for sure.
Yeah.
And I might still skip the rest of the series.
Yeah, I part of me is like, should I go back and watch it? Because the premise of the second one is that Troutman comes and says, we've just found out that there are, I don't know if they're members of his unit or if they're people that Rambo knew still in captivity in Vietnam.
Right.
Or Laos.
And he's sent to rescue them by shooting Vietnamese people.
And he's sent to rescue them. And that's when we kind of go back to the... So, I can't remember whether they even bother trying to deal with the PTSD stuff in that one or what. I couldn't say because I've only watched it once, I think.
Okay.
But I'm kind of inclined to go back and maybe watch some of those. I'm not particularly interested in watching any of the new ones. I just,
I don't need to see old Sly.
No, me either.
No. So this got some good alternative titles around the world.
Right.
Spain went with Cornered.
Right, that works.
Portugal got The Hero's Fury.
That's also quite good.
Finland was Fighter. Sweden was Warrior. French Canada, it was The Devastator.
Right.
Which I think was a massive transformer.
Yeah.
Taiwan, it was First Drop of Blood.
That's quite nice. That's got a very poetic ring to it.
Yeah, this one's going to be hard for me to say. In Brazil, it was Scheduled to Kill.
That sounds like a Bond movie.
But my absolute favourite was Colombia, where it was called Bloody Leak.
That sounds like an angry Welshman.
Yes.
Not prepping his soup properly.
There's also we also love a good tagline on this show, and this had some good ones as well. He never fought a battle he couldn't win. One war against one man, and my absolute favourite, he just wanted something to eat.
That just
because he does.
Yeah.
He just wanted to go and get a burger and then get out of town.
Yeah.
One final hilarious moment. I watched this digitally off my media server, which is sorted alphabetically, and I didn't realise it will autoplay the next item.
Right.
So as soon as this finished, the Pixar logo came up on my screen, and I was like, "What?"
Brilliant. Excellent. I guess that was for Ratatouille, right?
No, I don't know what it is. I'm gonna have to have a look. It's not Ratatouille. I don't like that film. I didn't make it all the way through it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like Ratatouille. That's one of my favourites.
Interesting. Oh, maybe I'll go back to it, but
Yeah,
like,
you should
it didn't. I've got Disney Plus. I can watch it whenever I
Yeah,
like.
absolutely.
Yeah. So there we go.
Ratatouille makes more sense when you realise that Remy, the rat, has synesthesia.
Okay. Maybe I'll watch that with that in mind.
Yeah, because obviously that's what a child needs to understand a movie.
Yes. Yeah, a word they can't possibly say, and I certainly can't this week.
Yeah.
So, due to a slight technical hitch that I'll explain in a minute, I think you should pitch your movie first.
Okay, so my pitch for next week, much like Airport, and I guess kind of Rambo and stuff like that, is it's a movie that I can't believe you haven't seen, but it's also a callback to a previous episode, and one of my, I wouldn't say it was one of my favourite films, but it's certainly one of the favourite pitches and reviews we've done, just based on your reaction to it.
I can now raise only one eyebrow, which I couldn't do before, so I'm going to do it for the camera.
So, first, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you prefer Terminator or T2 Judgment Day?
I prefer Terminator.
Okay, interesting.
Because Terminator 2 doesn't make sense within its own internal logic.
Fine.
But that's a different story for a different day.
Excellent. Okay, fine. So I feel the same way. I prefer Terminator. And this is a franchise where I have a similar thing. There's the sequel movie is often lauded as the better one, but I still prefer the original, and we covered the original already. So I'm going to pitch you Aliens.
I am now having a flashback to when I watched Alien for this show. I was 35 years old. It took me 2 sittings, and I had to have the lights on.
So Alien,
because it had been so amped up in my mind over the previous 35 years, because we did it we did it on a show with Time After Time.
Yes, we did.
It was movies of 1979. And that's one of the lost episodes.
Yeah, I know.
That we don't have a copy of, and it's
so
probably
sad.
my favourite we've ever done.
As soon as we started talking about redoing the show, I was just like, okay, he's definitely going to get Aliens. I have to say, I'm not a massive...
new stuff you've never heard of, you've never seen, and you're just giving me sequel crap. What is wrong with you,
Well,
Tom?
Unless you want things like Ugly Dolls and Frozen 2 and all the stuff that I've been watching recently.
I guess your cinematic sphere has changed somewhat in the last 3 years.
It has. And some of it is very good, I have to say.
Frozen 2?
Frozen 2 is way better than Frozen.
Okay. I'm still not bothered by either of them.
No, Frozen 1 was supposed to be like, I think it even went straight to Disney Channel. It was supposed to be it was a throwaway and got
so was The Lion King. And
Exactly.
look what that did for Disney. That was supposed to be a straight-to-video movie.
The second one, they've actually, they've taken the story and they've actually done something really good with it. So I thought it was actually pretty good. But I can't pitch you one without seeing the first one. I can't be bothered with all of that.
All right. Okay. I think we can gloss over Frozen
just
for
let
the
it
purposes
go.
of this podcast. Yeah.
Anyway, Aliens, because there's a segue.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of Aliens, but I think...
Oh, so this will be good.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine, but I thought I'd pitch it because of it's got a very similar feel between Terminator and Terminator 2 in that Alien is the horror movie, as is Terminator, and Terminator 2 is the action movie, as so is Aliens. It's also Jim Cameron, so you kind of know what you're going to get. it's more of a war movie, action movie. So I'm kind of intrigued to see whether you find it less terrifying and more palatable because you tend to prefer action over horror.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not big on horror apart from the classics. So like,
Yeah.
I love Halloween.
Yeah.
And like my horror threshold is something like Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not a crazy horror nerd. I have to say there are some that I really like. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of intrigued about is because it probably covers things that you prefer, but
I see.
I'm not sure if you'll prefer it to Alien or not. So that's what I think it'd be fun to talk about.
I seem to remember categorizing Alien as a film I'm very glad I have seen, and now take it away from me, I never need to see it again.
yeah, and that's fine. I like Alien because I love the style of it and I love all of that kind of like this, the way it's put together. So I think Aliens is just kind of going to be different, and I'll be interested to see what you think of that, whether it was the right way to take the franchise, blah blah blah. Because obviously Aliens is quite highly regarded. Everything subsequent to that is not.
No, very much not. Although there's some good comic books actually. There's some good Alien and Predator comic books.
Yeah, in terms of movies. I don't know what they're doing with the new ones and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how that works because and it all links into Predator and and there's obviously Prometheus and all of that kind of stuff.
Hello, Pete Hammond.
So yeah, we'll just see how we go with it. But I thought,
all right.
It'll be fun to see Terrified.
Do I get a
again.
synopsis, or is it just you're watching Aliens? You should know it by now.
I mean, come on, what more do you need than the pluralization?
You're getting an S. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's just more.
Okay. Well, so I had a movie I was going to pitch to you that was free on Amazon Prime. Until this week, where it's now £5 on Amazon Prime. So you're not getting that because I'm a cheapskate.
Oh, bugger.
You're getting my backup film, which I think will sit really nicely along with Aliens.
Okay, all right.
It's called Bill.
Bill. Okay.
Bill, yes. It is the totally historically accurate, 100% true story of William Shakespeare's formative years.
Okay. All right. That's a bit left field. Definitely will fit with Aliens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's Bill, not Bills.
Yeah. That's the sequel.
Yeah.
Bill Harder.
So, isn't he a comedian already?
Yeah, Electric Bill Galoo.
Bill Hader. Electric. Well, this is Electric Bill Galoot.
Okay.
So a lute player who is too flashy and progressive for the shit band he plays with, Bill Shakespeare,
Right.
Leaves his wife and kids and heads off to that London, having written, quote, a great work for the stage.
Right.
Luckily, the Queen happens to need one, but unluckily, the Spanish are invading. Now he has to navigate plagiarism, thievery, treachery, loan sharks, some dubious actors, and a Catholic plot.
Okay, this sounds bizarre.
It is so. Okay. It's not a direct lineage, but it is massively Python influenced.
Okay.
It's funny from the get-go. There is almost no shot without a joke.
Okay.
Almost airplane-like.
Right, okay.
It's not quite that. So have you seen the Lego Batman movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Once.
That is joke overload.
Mm.
Like, there are too many jokes for that film. And this isn't quite that, but it's still, like I said, nary a shot goes by without a visual gag or a pun in the background or a great line. It's made by the Horrible Histories crew.
Right, okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as you started pitching it, I was just like, I wonder if this is them, because it sounds very much like it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Simon Farnaby plays 5 people just through using different beards.
Okay.
There's a tremendous character of Francis Walsingham, Catholic hunter.
Right.
Like he's the Protestant Queen's head Catholic hunter.
Yeah.
Always deep undercover, at one point disguising himself as a dead body.
Amazing.
That same actor plays 7 other parts in this film.
Wow. I was once told that Walsingham, he basically invented spy networks and
that very much comes across in this film. I might
apparently though his techniques, like his concepts, are still exactly how it's done today.
Really?
Yeah.
So I am terrible when it comes to history. My school history education, if I tell you from my GCSE history, which in the UK is the main exam you do when you're 15 or 16, was on cholera in my hometown of Watford in Hertfordshire.
Right.
That will tell you how shit my history education is.
Yeah. Okay.
So for next episode, I might read up a bit more on the real people who are portrayed in this film.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I'm sure you'll get more out of it. Like you saying that now, I watched this last night. The character of Walsingham now makes so much more sense to me.
Right, okay, yeah. He was the spy master.
And he made plenty of sense to start with, yeah. And he's absolutely the spy
Yeah.
master.
Yeah. I once heard him described as he worked out that he was the spider in the middle of a web.
Right. Okay.
And
that makes so much sense.
And basically he worked out that if a fly tinged one of his strands of web, then he could act on it. And I wish I could remember the length of time, because that's probably the most important part of this anecdote, is that it was to do with possibly Shakespeare's brother or something like that, that said something in a pub in Stratford-upon-Avon and was arrested on Walsingham's command in something like 5 hours.
Wow.
And he was in London.
1650 or whatever it was.
And he was in London. So
that's incredible.
Like the chain of communication and back it was almost unheard of. Like, so he worked out how to make that happen in that period. So that's the kind of guy he was. Yeah. This sounds bizarrely fascinating.
I like this because it's well made, it's well told, it makes sense, it's very, very funny. It came to me through a very good friend of mine, Craig, who I've now known for 30 years, who just one day out of the blue went, "Have you seen Bill?" And I'm like, "No." And he gave me lent me the DVD, and he and his 10-year-old daughter love this.
Okay. I've never heard of it.
Right. Okay. Good.
Like,
it's
never.
a small thing. Like it's like it's a BBC film. It's made by it's one of those things that has like 9 different production companies show up at the beginning of it, and was made for like 3 million quid or whatever. I think it was a flop, to be honest. The only box office figure I can find is to the US, where it made less than $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it probably is suited more for TV. I wouldn't say it's televisual. Again, like Rambo, it's 2:35 aspect ratio, and it looks not expensively cinematic, but wouldn't look out of place in the cinema. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think it's a PG. Oh God, that's hard to say. It's a PG, and I think like the intended age range is kind of like 12 and 13-year-olds and their mum and dad, and I think it works for that audience completely. And for an idiot like me with no children who just chuckled along for 90 minutes at jokes about bums and Catholics who can't put on muscle mass because God hates them. So that's it. I guess that's our pitches for a diverse pair of movies next week.
Absolutely, it is, yeah.
And all because Amazon Prime decided they didn't want to make my movie free anymore.
Well, that's them's the breaks.
Yeah, there we go.
Aliens versus Bill.
Yeah. Title needs a rework, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Shall I see if Mr. Half-a-Face can plough through the plugs?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we are on Twitter / Instagram at HYS Podcast. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/haveyouseenpodcast. The website is haveyouseen.net. The email is hyspodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to follow along with my Bell's palsy adventures, you can get to the playlist of the videos I put on YouTube by going to bit.ly/Kieran Bells, KIERANBELLS. Forgot how to spell my own name there. Tom, anything you need to plug?
Oh yeah, we should. Speaking of Amazon, we should probably plug The Easy Bit, which is my documentary about what it's like for men to go through fertility treatment. And you can watch that on. You can rent it on Prime Video, and right Vimeo. Now, or Vimeo on demand.
Indeed,
both those sites. Yeah.
All right. let's get out of here. Oh, God, something else I forgot to mention. We may or may not be back next week. My workload next week, at the time, 3 days before recording this, was crazy. It might have eased off a bit. I don't know. So I will probably have time to watch movies next week. I don't know if on our usual recording night, I'm going to have time to record it, or any night after that for that week. So we'll leave you in suspense. You may get a show next week. It may be 2 weeks, but I promise we will be back with Aliens and Bill as our next episode.
We absolutely will.
Yes. So I think that's everything. It's been lovely to see you all, and goodbye.
Bye.